Doth mother know you weareth her drapes?
Before I get into this, I just have to ask one question. When you went to go see 2012's Avengers for the first time, right? And you saw it in the crowd, who got the biggest pop? Was it Captain America? Was it Thor? Was it Iron Man? Was it Black Widow? Hawkeye? No. It was the Incredible Hulk. I think everybody can agree with that. When Hulk came on the screen, Hulk showed the fuck out. Put some respect on his name. I'm tired of people disrespecting the Hulk. I always got to put that out there before I talk about the Avengers.
Hey, what's up and welcome back to the Critics Initiative. It's been a little while since the last video, but that's because this video in particular was always going to be one of the more difficult ones to pull off. Now remember, the entire idea behind the Critics Initiative was each critic is assigned their own franchise, and when we hit a crossover film, it's also going to be a crossover review of sorts. So today, I have Anthony A. Perez, Robbie Reed from The Big Rob Theory, Mike from Did You See That, and Rashad from Rashad G Reviews joining me today to talk about
The Avengers.
Marvel's The Avengers.
The Avengers. The Avengers is ultimately about Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk, Thor, among others, that are teamed up together for the first time, headed up by Nick Fury to battle the Asgardian god of mischief, Loki, who has just shown up on Earth with a plan to rule and conquer. At his aid is thousands upon thousands of alien warriors. It's up to the Earth's mightiest heroes to stop Loki before it's too late. The best way to look at the Avengers is to try to imagine it's back in 2012, because back then crossovers, while they somewhat existed, they never really existed at the level of the Avengers.
The Avengers had a bigger impact because this was the first time that you've seen the Earth's mightiest heroes together. This is the first time you've seen these heroes that can carry their own movies, carry their own franchises, and form together for the first time.
This was new, this was different, and it changed the future of both cinema and TV alike.
It was a dream come true. It came out the year after we graduated, actually, so it's just really crazy to see how far we've come in the MCU since then.
Yeah,
but even leading up to that, I mean, it was an amazing experience. I remember seeing it on opening night and just being completely blown away by just the visuals, the characters, and the fact that we were finally seeing these kinds of characters come together in a live action way. It was a dream come true, from all the video games, the comic books, the cartoons that would already do it.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, who would have thought that we would have even reached that point? And to see where the Avengers movies have gone in and of themselves since then is crazy.
So we had the buildup of Iron Man, Iron Man 2, Incredible Hulk, Thor, Captain America, the first Avenger. And then when you saw that teaser trailer, when the camera circled around all of them.
Iconic shot.
That iconic shot
Where they all stood around in a circle.
with all of them, where they all turn around, the camera's turning around them, and you got that iconic
Superhero
Avengers
poses.
theme.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just perfect.
As all the bad guys are, of course, coming towards them. It's just kind of like a money-making shot.
Like, it's a perfect shot. It's an iconic shot. And to think back at how many years it's been since that movie came out, that movie will forever go down in cinematic history as one of my favorite movie-going experiences as well. The theater was erupting from beginning to end from when I went to go see that movie.
Man, nerdgasms galore. I was dry by the time that shit was over with, you know what I mean? So just to see them all together like that was like the biggest crossover since the Flintstones and the Jetsons, okay?
It's just this thing that we could not even fathom that happened. And obviously he said it. Where Avengers is now, jeez Louise. Bro, like the ending scene to the newest, the most recent Avengers movie is just, who would have thought that we'd get that, So when this movie came out, it was just a dream come true for my inner and outward nerd,
Since 2012, we've seen crossovers in both DC films and television shows alike, and other franchises have tried to create their own cinematic universe. While some have succeeded in their own attempts, nothing ever really came close to what Marvel did, because they've always felt forced, trying to get up to speed with where Marvel was, but Marvel got there organically. It took a few years before they could really master a real cinematic universe, and that's a part of why The Avengers feels so utterly good when you watch it. And they're about to change the future of movies and TV again with the whole multiverse thing they're doing. I can already tell everybody else is already trying to follow suit. Yeah, the comics have done these crossover and multiverse things for many years before, but film didn't.
It's just something you don't see a whole lot.
For the longest time, they logistically couldn't. There's a difference between writing something this big and actually making it a cinematic reality.
Alright, since He-Man joined She-Ra, okay, that's how large that was.
And Joss Whedon also.
Joss Whedon is getting a lot of shit right now, deservingly so.
Before the controversy surrounding him even happened, I would have gladly said Joss was one of my favorite writer-directors out there. His sense of humor and ability to make his movies and TV shows have this specific tone was always something really unique. I had never hated or really disliked anything that he's ever done.
Joss Whedon, obviously, understandably so, has received a lot of crap in the last couple of years. You can look into that yourself if you're interested.
Listen, let's give the man his flowers, separate the man from the art. This man put together something that few directors could have accomplished. You know what I mean? He directed 2 really good Avengers movies. I mean, people say what they want about Age of Ultron, but I thought it was tight.
And Joss Whedon also performs a great directorial debut.
Give everybody equal screen time, and to have everybody have their moment to shine, and still tell a coherent story that wasn't scatterbrained all over the place. You know what I mean? That's very hard to do, and he pulled it off in spades.
I would be the guy following his career, first in line to see his next project, whatever that may be.
And this really kicked off the MCU, you know what I'm saying? Because the previous installments, yeah, it was built up to this moment, but after this moment, shit was never the same. And it's still impacting the MCU. We got Hawkeye now, and Hawkeye references the Avengers in a comedic way, which I think kind of, I don't want to say diluted, but it just makes it a little bit more comical. But no, the Avengers at the time was serious. I took it serious, goddammit, especially when my boy Hulk came on the scene.
It's just crazy to see that when we were younger, we read these comics, we read everything about it, and then you see that on the big screen, and it's just like, wow. You see all the other movies that happen, obviously there's different phases to Marvel, and then you see this movie and you're like, oh my god, this is great. This is absolutely, obviously there's some things, that aren't the best about the movie, but overall,
yeah, I have very
absolutely
minimal negatives about this movie.
My negatives, they ain't that bad, trust me.
Yeah, there are little things you can nitpick, like, Hawkeye is not with the team the whole time, like the way they kind of just wrote him to be like this mind-controlled, guy most of the movie.
Yes, there are better movies than the Avengers, technically speaking, but just what the Avengers meant and how people went crazy, the pop from the crowd, okay? Only thing that kind of tops that, or comes close to it, is when Cap caught Thor's hammer, and, the crowd went crazy then too, but when you saw all them together like that, bananas.
My negatives mostly have to go off the idea that you can't really give these people Best Actor awards. So even though the acting was strong, it was never perfect, so to speak. And I wasn't really the biggest fan of the series reusing a villain, especially Loki. Even though everybody else seems to love him, I never really did. And to see him be reused was mostly annoying to me. But I did like him better here than in Thor, so there's that.
And I can't really tell you that I've really remembered this movie completely 100% because I truly don't. With my experience of the Avengers, now this is going to be a bit of a funny take. However, the way that I remember the Avengers film the most after all of these years of originally watching it is by playing the Lego Marvel's superhero game that actually plays through the Avengers. And it was crazy because when I was rewatching this for this collab, I was like, I'm pretty sure I remember this scene. And yeah, it's from the Lego game. So yeah, pretty crazy that a Lego game made me remember the full events of pretty much the Avengers as I was then watching on with the film and the rest of it. And it was just so cool.
Little things that you can nitpick here and there, but ultimately, as just a movie in and of itself, a movie that's introducing all these characters in one movie. Not introducing, but certain characters are introduced in this movie, and there's characters that didn't have a whole lot of screen time that were introduced in previous films, like Hawkeye, who really get to be fleshed out a lot more here, and of course with Age of Ultron, which I'm sure we'll all get to at some point. But yeah, this is a beautiful film. The action, the cinematography, the CGI, the whole final battle sequence of this movie.
Infinity War is the better movie.
I may not actually agree with Rashad here, but only time can tell. Infinity War was fantastic, I agree, but sometimes less is more. The more characters and storylines that you get, the more convoluted your story might become. The Avengers hit a moment that Goldilocks would consider just right, because it never felt like too much. Everybody had equal screen time, everything felt even, the pacing was really nice, to the point where it no longer feels like a crossover event in 2021. It just kind of feels like another movie, which is actually a really good thing. I consider this movie to be, after all these years, nearly perfect.
I think it goes without saying I love this film. I think the cast is solid. Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Chris Evans, Tom Hiddleston. The list goes on and on and on. I mean, some of the biggest names in movies today are all in this movie, and it just gets better and better with each movie.
Overall, this is just a fun movie, and certainly one with all these new Marvel movies and TV shows coming out now, one that you can really and want to revisit and maybe notice some Easter eggs that didn't the first time round.
I remember seeing that Mark Ruffalo was the Hulk that was
Yeah.
in this movie, and I remember this is the first time that they changed it, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. Bro,
amazing.
halfway in the movie, I was like,
Yeah.
why hasn't he been the Hulk the whole time? Edward Norton, great. He was great,
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen Edward Norton. I think he probably kicks himself in the ass a little bit for stepping off of the project, but
I want to kick him in the ass because I loved that movie.
Yeah.
I loved that movie. And just that Mark Ruffalo just gave a great performance, It was just the way, at first, obviously, I was like, we'll see what happens. But all the actors and actresses in this movie, even the actress, I watched the How I Met Your Mother and the Agent Hill, Maria Hill, her real name is Cobie Smulders, and she killed it. That's the first time I saw her in a Marvel thing after watching How I Met Your Mother. So you go from Robin Scherbatsky to Maria Hill, and you're like, what? Yeah. She did an amazing job. So that just goes to show that this whole movie was just directed very well.
Marvel's The Avengers gets an A+ in my book, A+++++. One of the illest comic book movies of all time, second best Avengers movies of all time. That's it. That's all.
I really do not have any problems with this movie, and I hate to say that because I don't like saying a movie's perfect because it's not perfect by any means. But I just didn't really have any issues with it.
yeah, I mean,
didn't really have any issues with
it's not a perfect film, but I think what I will say as kind of just like a complete reversal of that is that for the first ever Avengers film, it's damn near perfect. There are things you can nitpick, of course. There are things you can watch when you're watching with your friends and kind of be like, that's kind of funny, or
exactly.
that doesn't hold up. Like Captain America's outfit in this movie is horrible. When you look back, it is the worst Captain America live action costume he's ever had. The whole over the head wrapped up thing. It's terrible. After that, from Winter Soldier on, they made it look really cool. Like he always kind of has a similar look after that, but it looks cool. It looks kind of like real armor or protection that you'd wear, a real suit that you'd wear for an objective reason that has pockets for things. And even though he doesn't use any of those things, it looks like a tactical outfit. The one from this Avengers movie is it's weak, and it's really bright and vibrant, and just compared to everybody else, he just really stands out, especially when you go back after all this time in the series. I kind of think to myself sometimes when I see him in this movie, if that's what he was wearing at the end of Endgame when he was fighting Thanos, it would just look so much more goofy, And so, yeah, that's probably one of my biggest negatives. But it all comes down to nitpicks, right? Little things that you could say, oh, that could have been better, oh, this could have been better. But ultimately, I always have a smile on when I'm watching this movie. It's filled with so many quotable lines. It's funny. It's exciting. It's just visually just a spectacle. It's got heart. It's got stakes. You really believe what's happening. You're really worried for our characters at times, especially characters like Iron Man later on. But then there's hilarious moments like when they're doing Shakespeare in the Park earlier in the film, and where Robert Downey Jr. just kills me. Doth mother know you weareth her drapes? There's just so many quotable and fantastic. Exactly. So I think it goes without saying I love this film, and big thanks to Dave for having us on to talk about Avengers, man.
Dave, with that in mind, my man, I'm going to hand it straight back over to you.
No, I appreciate it, Dave, man. This Critics Initiative is a great idea, and it's awesome, and we've had fun, even though it took us a minute to get this to you, but I mean, it's all good, we enjoy this, and I'm looking forward to see everything come to fruition, so thanks again for that, man.
Yeah, for sure. Well, big thanks to Dave. Again, I'm Anthony A. Perez. This is the Big Rob Theory. You guys can probably find the links to our channels down below in the description box, unless Dave doesn't like us, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Take it easy, guys.
So let's go ahead and break down my final score from a strictly technical and unbiased perspective. I think that there's plenty to love. Whenever you have this many characters sharing the screen together, it becomes increasingly important not to leave the characters sidelined. You need to focus on all of them pretty much equally, and the Avengers definitely does that. The writing is sharp, the action is never tiresome, and it does a great job building up for the future installments of the universe altogether. This score is 94%. As for how I personally felt about it, or my bias score, I gotta say, this is a movie that always does it for me. Some of the Super Smash Bros. Stuff where the heroes just kind of end up fighting each other throughout the film, that doesn't really further anything plot-wise, but it is a lot of fun to watch, and overall, the tone always fit the attitude of the film. Overall, I consider this to be one of the MCU's best films to date, and my bias score is a perfect 100%, meaning when combined, my total score for the Avengers is 97%, 97 out of 100 possible stars, or an A+ letter grade. I have to thank my guests today for joining, and I've left a link to all their channels in my description box below for y'all to check out. Give them love and tell them I sent you. And also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment down below for your thoughts on this 2012 Avengers film. And until next time, peace out.
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert. He is the #1 critic that I go to when I need